could be wrong too, because I don't listen to obviously him enough to know what he's saying. So the order really was Terrence, Soul Sister, TK, Agent, and the Devil. So because we have a lot of hands up, let's just be cognizant of time. We can always circle back to you. But go ahead, Terrence, and
Also,
then again, Soul
Sharky,
Sister.
I'm going to take myself to listener because I see you've got a full stage, and just in case anybody's
Yeah.
requesting, I'm just going to go listen for a bit.
Okay. I mean, there's enough room, but feel free. No worries. Okay, go ahead, Terrence. And again, Soul Sister, TK. Maybe it was the Devil. No, Agent and the Devil. Okay, go ahead, Terrence.
Yeah, just between D and my man who just dropped, he all great points. While I was listening, I see all the little video clips of Trump and RFK Jr. together. I mean, it seems like they're made for each other. I mean, he RFK Jr., his sole purpose originally was to be a spoiler for Trump when the dynamic was Biden Trump. It was to create that maybe 3 or 4% of a vote for people who are dissatisfied with both, even though, me and you, Sharky, and many others in this space were perfectly fine with Biden. But, obviously, we were, our vote was never, in doubt, but there were people who were undecided. But his sole purpose was to take that 3 or 4%, kind of like what happened with Stein and Gary Johnson in 2016, that basically created an area where Clinton couldn't get to 50% in a couple of states, and Trump was able to beat her because there were people who weren't enthused about either of them, and his tanking poll numbers. I mean, RFK, besides Trump, is the reason why he had to get out of the race. And it's all because Kamala just shot out of the gate, in this past month, and basically just, like slingshotted right above Trump. And I saw polls even today that had her up 6 or 7%. But one thing to remember, that uh, Trump has always outperformed his polls. So and I don't think I need to explain it to anybody that's in this space. We got to vote like we're 3 down, and the situation is dire. And I just wanted to point out that, again, I think I said this very early on in this space, but there was a concerted effort made by the Democrats, to have a lot, besides the fact that Kamala is our nominee, but there were a lot of speakers, female speakers who represented the Democratic Party, and that was by no accident. We're trying to max out the vote, and the fact that we're looking for reproductive freedom, and ever since Dobbs, and Trump gave us that issue, even though he's now tweeting that he's for freedom for everybody, or truthing, whatever you want to call it. And that just shows the panic that he's in, the same panic that he's in by now. Like, I think over the weekend, he was going after Governor Kemp in Georgia. Now he's basically, fawning over him, like bending over backwards for him, because he's probably seen the polls, and his campaign has told him now that he's probably behind in Georgia. And he's hoping that what happened 4 years ago won't happen again, where maybe this time Kemp or Raffensperger will give him imaginary 11,000 votes, to give him the win. And what was said earlier is true. Stage 1 is winning this thing. Stage 2 is winning it by numbers that cannot be manipulated, because you know what this crybaby is going to do. He's going to claim that it was stolen. He's going to file lawsuits in every swing state. And that's why, winning by 12,000 in Arizona and Georgia won't be enough this cycle. And I think we're all fearful of another uh, Florida 2000 scenario where the Supreme Court has to be involved, because we know what's going to happen there. Not to mention, three of the people who were on in various levels of George W. Bush's staff in 2000 are now Supreme Court justices: Roberts, Kavanaugh, and Coney Barrett. So it's a perpetual thing that just keeps on giving. So and that's why I felt it was a smart move by the Democrats to put people like Jeff Duncan, former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, and Adam Kinzinger uh, in prominent speaking roles, basically giving a permission structure to other Republicans who are leery of Trump after 8 years and counting, that that basically it's okay. You don't have to call yourself a Democrat to vote for Kamala Harris. You just have to call yourself a patriot. And then we'll sort it out after the election, what happens to the GOP. But to me, as was mentioned, the fact that 41 million Zoomers have come of age, and the fact that I think there's going to be a greater erosion of Republican voters voting for Kamala Harris, and the fact that she tried her best during her acceptance speech to basically say nothing about her being a proud Democrat, but basically being a proud American. And that means supporting democracy, supporting democracy abroad, all the tenets that Republicans in the 90s, when I was growing up, used to espouse. And now they've given up on all of those things. And it's not like the Democrats stole anything. We've always been supportive of those things. But now I believe people are going to start associating us with democracy and freedom, because now we have a party that's trying to further take away women's rights. We have a Supreme Court who already overturned Roe, who says that they wouldn't try to overturn Obergefell. So all of these things are going on right now. You can't trust anybody to follow precedent. And we're the steady party now. We're the party that supports Ukraine. We're the party that supports, democracy abroad everywhere. And that shouldn't be taken lightly. And for me, I'm hoping that leads with Kamala and Tim Walz continuing to generate the excitement that they have. To me, I see this right now, and it could change, but I see this paralleling 2008, where Obama won like 53-46, and it was reflective of we made advances in the House and we won Senate seats. So I think those things are necessary, because we need to pass our agenda. Now, we may not get to 60 votes in the Senate, but I'd rather have a Senate that's in Democratic hands. God forbid one of the justices passes away. Like, we don't want another 2016 scenario where Scalia dies, and the Republicans will not accept a Democratic nominee because they want to keep that 6-3 supermajority. So for all those reasons, I'm hoping that this maxes out, that we win big, because if we do, I think then Republicans have to start soul searching and saying, obviously, maybe we've gone too extreme. Like, no, no, we're losing. We've lost ever since Trump won in 2016. We've pretty much lost every major election, and also again, to, I would love for a Democrat to inherit like Kamala taking over from somebody and basically having a decent economy, and the country is at peace, no wars. Obama took over a financial disaster, stock market plunging, wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and Biden took over a country that was divided because of the events of January 6th, and over 500,000 people dying from a pandemic that was mismanaged, and about another 125, 130,000 Americans each week that were hospitalized because of COVID. But this would be unprecedented for us to take over from Joe Biden, an economy that's stable, and build upon it. And I'll leave it there so other people can talk.
Another mic drop. I love all the speakers tonight. There's, usually as a host, I say a little bit back and forth, but I don't think I need to tonight. I think a lot of you are just mic dropping all over the place. It's like Kamala 3.4.7.0. It's really amazing. And thank you for sharing a lot of that. And also thank you to everyone that's being patient with their hands up. But I know a lot of you know me, but normally I'm like, oh yeah, let's talk about this for a second before I go to another hand. But damn, Terrence, um, great point. So, with that, and I always say this, so I want to make sure people are heard because I never want to be that host that's like, okay, Mary, Barry, what do you have to say? But some of you just mic drop so much where I'm like, holy fucking shit, I don't really have anything back. All right, Soul Sister's been waiting for
Yeah, and if
quite
I
a
don't speak now, I'm gonna have
how
to
you doing?
drop and come back to your space, Sharky, because I'm in the middle of a
All good, all
project. I'm
good.
so sorry. But what I wanted to say is that one thing that we're not talking about is the fact that uh, the foolery that is happening right now in Georgia in regards to their voting rights, how they have an app, even, or some kind of system in place where someone can put somebody else's name in and take them completely off the voter rolls. I mean, and this is just one way of voter suppression. So there are some real things that are taking place in Georgia that go beyond, Raffensperger and Kemp. So I want people to be aware of that. We do have someone that comes into Ms. D's Space Advocacy Arena and gives us the updates on it, but also you can look this up on Google. In regards to messaging, it's really important too that you use your own voice. So if you are concerned with putting yourself in a thread or quote tweeting or something, subtweet it. I'm seeing a lot of people saying such and such. Here are some facts that you may not know. It's a totally decent way of addressing misinformation, disinformation, and still getting your message out. So just use your voice in your voice. Mimicking somebody else is not going to work because you're not going to be able to keep it up. You have to be yourself, whatever that is, however that is. Misty is absolutely correct. Kamala HQ has been doing an amazing job with how they're addressing things, but there are others who are champions of democracy, let alone Kamala Harris, and are out there fighting disinformation and misinformation as well. I think that it's important also to remember that the legal team that Kamala Harris has right now is twice the size of what Joe Biden had in 2020. And they just added Mark Elias, who's a friggin' champion. Um, he was over 60 for the cases that went up against not just the Supreme Court, but many other courts across this nation in regards to alleged voter fraud. And he has done an amazing job with addressing voter suppression, gerrymandering, et cetera, et cetera. So he is one person also to watch and follow and pay attention to. And also, it might help calm your nerves a little bit that she has a stellar team and it's doubled in size because we do know what we're fighting against. We do have somewhat of the playbook that we know that they're going to be using, and we're better prepared. We're never going to be completely prepared, but better prepared is better than not being prepared at all. Additionally, I think that it is, I heard someone say earlier that about the Supreme Court being liberal. Maybe I misheard it. Maybe I think, maybe that's what I thought I heard. But, we do know that the Supreme Court is not. And, the previous speaker is absolutely correct. The people who did help with the, yeah, stealing of our votes during the Al Gore and Bush administration, or I'm sorry, election, are now Supreme Court justices, and they do not give a damn about us having our rights. I would, if it were me, I'd be checking my voter registration twice a week at this point. I live in a blue state. I live in Michigan. We have a trifecta. I still check it twice a week. Sometimes I check it more than that because if it's mentioned in the space, I just go and check it anyway. It's a constant thing for me. If you don't want to do a mail in ballot, you can see whether or not your state has early voting. I'm not going to do a mail in ballot. I am going to do early voting. I don't want to be at the polls on that day. I want to be at the polls doing something else or somewhere else doing something to help other voters make sure they're able to exercise their voting rights. So that's a decision that I've made. In regards to having the day off as a holiday, well, I agree. It should be a holiday. If you work for a union, it is a holiday. That's why we should be supporting unions everywhere for everyone. That's the gracious thing about being in a union because we do believe in social and economic justice, and it's very friggin' important, and we take it very seriously. So, um, there is a hotline number for every state, and I'll try to find it and send it to Miss D or someone, or in you, Sharky, so you can post it in the space because I am going to have to drop after this. But just so people, if they're at the polls and they're having an issue, there is a 1-800 number that you can call. And the graphic that I have is it's relevant for all 50 states. So we already know what they're going to do. We just have to make sure about what we're going to do. I think that it's important to meet people where they are. I try my best to be as congenial as I can be. Um, I do give people a warning to that I will be blocking them if they continue, or sometimes I just block. It doesn't matter. It depends on what I'm feeling like because usually it's, somebody dropping into my timeline, not me dropping into theirs. So, you have to protect yourself and you have to protect your peace, your sanity. And it's not because I want to live in a bubble and I don't care to have a dialogue with someone who thinks differently or feels differently than I do. But if you don't believe in democracy, I'm really not sure what more conversation is necessary ever. I'm never going to be on the side of voter suppression or those who want to vote against my interests. So, I'm not saying everybody has to take that advice, but I'm saying that's how I manage myself and that's how I manage my timeline. I'm a little more confrontational than Miss D, and she is my mentor, and I love her with everything. What I really, really appreciate about her is that she talks me off the edge so many times. I seek out her advice. She's a wonderful human being. I know not everybody is going to be able to have that relationship with her, but I follow her example because I do find that she is one of the best people on this app to actually mimic or see as an example. So if that's another little bit of advice that I can give you, that's what I will also say. You can't be in every space with everyone. If you find yourself feeling uncomfortable, or whatever, leave. But this space, Sharky, your spaces tend to be one where you can actually have disagreements, dialogue, and meaningful conversations, and I appreciate that. Miss D's space is obviously my favorite, and I'm always going to say that, and I've always said that, and she knows it. This is nothing new. But I really appreciate what I'm hearing today. What I'm hearing tonight, I kind of needed to have a space in my ear after the excitement of the convention. I kind of felt like I still wanted to talk a little bit about how amazing it was, and I'm so grateful for just the opportunity to see people in our collective community who were content creators who were able to have this opportunity to be there and to showcase their talents and their abilities, and they weren't just out there, living it up. They were actually working hard, and I think that that's extremely, extremely applaudable, and we should all just take our hats off to that, because I know that they worked hard each and every day that they were there, and they were dedicated and still remain dedicated to electing Madam Vice President as our next president of this United States of America. Um, I think that legacy media has been put on notice because they don't understand how to cover any bit of real factual news anymore. There's no investigative reporting. The fact checking is after the fact, and it doesn't seem to match the events happening in real time, which is absolutely terrible, because most people who are viewing it or reading it are reading it at that moment. They're not going to go back and see whether or not somebody corrected themselves on a newscast or in a newspaper. They're just not. They're too busy. We usually in these type of spaces are more wonky. We're more dialed in, and we're more dedicated to making sure that we stay informed. And I think that gives us an advantage, but it also gives us an illusion that everybody has the same type of information that we do. So I say just keep having conversations with people. I have conversations with people all the time, and it doesn't even have to get that deep. Sometimes it's like, as I'm leaving the register, are you registered to vote? Okay, thank you. Because if you're not, I can give you the information. And it depends on where that conversation goes. T-shirts, and then I'm not saying like necessarily like it says Biden or Kamala Harris across it, but I wear a lot that says like uh, very pro democracy or something like that, or something about racism, something about humanity, anything to start or spark a conversation. And I do that because that is who I am, and that is who I have always been. I'm not going to be the one that's wearing a big polo across my chest or anything like that. Not that I am against people who do that, but I feel like if I'm going to have something on me, it's going to be something that lets you know who I am as an individual, who I am foundationally, fundamentally, what I believe in, so that there's no mistake. There's no mistake at all. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing. I don't, hey, I worked for the UAW. A lot of times I'm like, I'm not one, two, or three, so please don't play with me, okay? And that's just where I stand on things. So I know I've spoken longer than what you've asked, and you have a lot of hands, and I'm going to let you get to them. But I appreciate your spaces so much, and hello to everyone in the room. Thank you, Sharky, and I hope you guys have a great night. I'm going to drop down. I'll be here, but I'm not going to be able to talk for a minute. Thanks.
That's okay. Thanks so much. Soul Sister, I know I talked to you a few weeks ago, and yes, Dee is amazing. And anyone that's new, definitely follow her and the advocacy space. But I don't want to get too into that because of the hands. But yeah, definitely. And I love that you brought up voting and different things like that. And I know Dre had brought up similar things earlier. That we should probably be posting in the nest too, with a lot of the registration and different things like that. There was something else that you said that I was gonna with shirts, and I it's funny that you said that because I was like, there's one shirt that you could almost wear, and it didn't matter if you were like a Democrat or Republican or a Mickey Mouse voter. That was almost like that would grab people's attention, but it completely lost me. Earlier, I don't believe anyone in the room brought up SCOTUS being a liberal. I think we were all sort of on the same page with that it's absolute Christo fascism and Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. But there was something about maybe Hillary Clinton earlier, but you brought up a lot of great points as usual. I think, any friend of D, I like to say, is like a friend of mine. And sorry you have to drop the listener, but I enjoyed listening to you. The listener listens. But yeah, if you guys could, it really would be amazing. Oh, Georgia. Yeah. So a lot of people aren't hearing about this. This is, I think, the second time I've heard about this today. So any information that you can post up in the nest or the purple pill down there about this, it's really important to get this information out. Because I don't know, like it's way too much going on. So anything that you know of concretely, fact checked, especially about voting, would be really beneficial. So, again, thank you. I really appreciate that. I am, because I told Ozzy hours ago, I said, and hopefully Agent and TK will yield. I said, Ozzy tends to be someone that's always running to something, and he does live in Australia. So I said, if you ever come up, you get the golden ticket. You won the Willy Wonka factory. Um, you can go ahead, and then I'll do Agent and TK because that was the order of the room. I know a few people dropped down that had their hands up. So go ahead, random Ozzy.
Thanks, Sharky. Oh, I feel a bit bad. A lot of other people had their hand up. But I just wanted to. Sorry, it was Saturday morning here, so I had to jump off before because I was got to the golf course. And, I'm driving home now. But I had a quick question. In Australia, like the pandemic showed us that our federal politics don't have as much power here because our state politics, they had a lot of control with doing what they wanted during the pandemic. I just wanted to ask a question because obviously I don't know because I'm not from America. But regardless of who gets into power, whether federally, like whether it's Democratic or Republican, does it really affect you guys day to day, or is it more like your state, whatever state you live in, is got to actually affect you like for your day to day life? Yeah, that was all. Just sort of saying if you guys had any information about that.
Oh, that's a really convoluted question. Yes, it does. It does affect us. I mean, do you mean, I don't mean to laugh. Do you mean like presidentially or like local, like everything, like school
Like,
council, but
like
like to make it make sense to someone who lives in Australia. So like, do you mean,
uh,
maybe clarify?
I use this as an example. Say you earn X amount of money and you get taxed X amount, and then if Donald Trump gets in or Kamala Harris gets in, will you still get taxed the same amount, or or does it depend on your state government? They might say, we're going to do this with the tax, and that's just one example. I'm just saying, like, does something like that federally like impact you, or is it more your state that would impact something like that?
I'm gonna let D take that, but go ahead, D. Just go ahead.
Yeah. I love what you said. Yes, it affects us. That's why it's important. And both of those things are true. Um, what happens on the local level is often driven more by our local elected officials, like we have state houses, representatives and senators in the state. But the federal elected officials um, create policies and laws that affect the whole country. And so both of those